Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video of FoxFlix on Watch Cultural Gaming. Today we're going to look at how 8 ways video games blew our minds without us even realizing it. Let's go.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of launching a brand new video game and bathing in all of the wondrous new vistas and visuals that it offers you. Epic rolling landscapes now lie before you, just waiting to be explored, and as the sun bounces off your armor and weapons, and in my case my head, you might even catch yourself fully committing to the idea that this fantasy world is most definitely real. However, appearances can be deceiving, my friend, because even though things look polished to a mirror sheen on the surface, even if you peel back even one frayed edge of most current video games, you'll find a wheezing skeleton with bones held together by duct tape propping up the experience. This is because of the ever-evolving nature of video games, of how they change ideas and mechanics all the time and thus have to adapt old frameworks to fit new resources, which naturally cause things to come into conflict. And when that happens, developers have to get pretty creative pretty bloody quickly. Which leads us to examples of video games blowing our bloody minds without us even realizing. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 ways video games blew your mind without you realizing.
Let's
Number
go.
8. Necromorphs are pretty much all unique. Dead Space Remake. Now, it was with a collective sigh of relief that the recent Dead Space remake arrived on the scene with both style and grace earlier this year. Doing justice to...
after watching a gameplay about that game, I have to say it is shockingly better than what I thought it would have been. When I heard that they were making a Dead Space remake, I was like, oh god, they're gonna butcher the hell out of this. But no, it's actually worth it. Get the game if you want to play it. Look up Jesse Cox if you want to watch it. That's what I did because I had watched his original playthrough. So, you know.
The original source material while adding in significant quality of life improvements that show others in the field just how things should be done. And one of the tweaks made to this game is, on paper, actually rather
Hold on, folks. Okay.
tiny, but has a huge impact on the player experience overall, and it concerns the necromorphs and the concept of flesh tearing. As pointed out by Mandalore Gaming in their review of the remake, they noted how in this version the player has to not only shoot through the bone of the necromorph limbs in order to defeat them, but now has to go through muscle and flesh that surround it. This means that players will need more ammunition overall to rip through the muscle in order to expose the bone. And it's actually possible to shred off the tissue to slow the movements of these horrors down, as now without sufficient strength, they will crawl and stumble around the area. Now this all creates a greater sense of tension and horror in the player.
Oh, no. And we're back.
As they will need multiple pinpoint shots to down a foe, but can also strip the necromorphs of their speed in ways unseen in the original. Now this also plays into the fact that there are countless necromorph design features, all of which come with limbs of varying tissue coverage, meaning that the same shot on the same enemy won't work to the same extent, and that in turn means that players will have to read and adapt to each enemy as if it were entirely unique. And that, my friends, is utterly terrifying. Number 7. Intricate weather systems. Shenmue! Yes, that's right, I finally get to say it again. Shenmue, or Shenmue, yes, let's just call it normal one, is without question a bizarre game indeed. Upon its first glance, you might think that the original Dreamcast title was little more than a martial arts action romp with graphics that were way ahead of its time, as that's what pretty much every trailer and hype package for this title placed up front. However, it's only when you sit down to play Shenmue that
I don't know this game, so I have no comment.
You realise that it is so much more than this. True, the action is still very present, but there's an equal focus on, well, how to put it, the sheer mundanity of real life, in that you're constantly tasked with exploring and gathering clues as you would in real life through asking people questions, taking note of their routines, and even taking up part-time jobs so you don't bloody well starve to death. In fact, there's so much attention placed on these smaller, quieter moments that many get lost in these aspects of the game, which seems doubly true of the developers who, for some reason that only they will truly understand, they programmed the weather on each in-game day to reflect the actual climate of that region of Japan in 1986. It is a small, almost insignificant detail, but it smacks of a dev team that made this game a slice of life in the most immediate sense.
They would call that dedication.
And once you know about this facet, well, it helps you appreciate Shenmue's dedication to immersion. Number 6. Bosses get easier in their last phase. Fury. There's no beating around the bush
Huh.
when I say that Fury is a game that will have your trousers down more than a few times, and its red-hot poker-style gameplay will definitely brand your buttocks as it then proceeds to kick your teeth in. What I'm trying to say is that it's very hard. Very, very hard. It's brilliant, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely the type of game that will break your wrists before ever trying to hold the player's hand. Or so it would seem, because as it turns out, this game actually takes it easy on you when a boss reaches their final phase. Now you see, as part of the mega game dev thread that hit Twitter in 2017, Emmerich Thoer, the creative director behind Fury, revealed that as a boss fight wore on and they entered their final phase, so too did the player enter a divergence between visual design and gameplay difficulty. You see, despite the moves being unleashed by these bosses looking more and more elaborate, the actual damage dealt and the timing windows to avoid them were dropped and raised respectively, thus making for a boss that looked far harder than it actually was. The design philosophy behind this was that it would empower the player to make them feel all the more like an all-conquering warrior when they landed that last blow. Pretty clever stuff, right? Number 5. Squirrels trigger all in-game events. Titan Quest. There's no doubt in my mind that making a video game must be one of the most stressful jobs going. I mean, just imagine how migraine-inducing it must be to take a level that worked perfectly, add in another element that you know works in isolation, and then just watch as your entire project melts down into oblivion. Then, imagine having to rework things in such a way that these two elements, which should just bloody work but don't somehow, actually cooperate together. Well, for the video game Titan Quest, the answer to get things working was actually as simple as it was utterly insane. Because it was invisible squirrels. Yes, you heard me right. So it turns out that according to Arthur Bruno, the lead designer of Titan Quest, the game had a real issue with not being able to delay actions or events after a trigger was hit. This made for some rather infuriating moments where the team would want a door to open or close on a delay, but the game simply wouldn't allow them to do this. And as the team was already under significant time pressure and resources weren't readily available, QA testers were brought
They were like, screw it, invisible squalls, go. Okay.
in to help generate solutions, and it was one of these unnamed heroes that came up with the idea of using the idle animations of squirrels to delay the events after triggering. Soon, this became the default timing mechanic in this game, and were made invisible to hide this rather strange solution from the player. So, if it ever feels like you're being watched while playing this game, you quite literally are by thousands of tiny invisible squirrels.
Yeah.
Number 4. Explosive
Sounds like a
barrels
lot.
are full of tiny invisible people. Star Wars: The Old Republic. A long time ago...
Oh, scrap roll. Scrap. Ah, crap, I can't say that damn word. Shrapnel, there you go, shrapnel.
In a galaxy far, far away, there existed a little game called Star Wars: The Old Republic, a beautifully crafted MMO which gave wannabe Jedi and those itching to be a Sith the chance to swing sabers with the big boys. Yet in a time not so long ago, and in a hive of scum and villainy, also known as 2022 and Twitter respectively, lead combat designer George Zola revealed that there was a lot more going on within this game than meets the eye, and detailed a rather humorous case of the explosive barrels found within this game. It turns out that these barrels were actually filled with, and I can't believe I'm saying this, tiny explosive humans, as the game was unable to allow damage to be inflicted on an object, and so the barrels had to be reconfigured to be humans that detonated upon death. Another reason for this odd change is that originally the barrels had much more complex designs that worked around the who can receive damage quirk, but it totally tanked frame rates when implemented. Thus, the tiny humans in a barrel solution was reached, and what a solution it was. Number 3. Morrowind rebooted your Xbox while playing.
Oh.
The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. There's no denying that the decision to release Morrowind for the original Xbox must have been one that caused many a Bethesda worker to break out in a stress rash, as the concept of porting a game of
Considering most of those games of Skyrim are PC only.
this size, scope, and graphical quality to a console with such relatively meagre offerings isn't one I'd like to have to deal with, let me tell ya. And yet, the game not only managed to make it to Microsoft's flagship console, but went on to become one of the most lauded on the platform, and many, to this day, still wonder how the team managed to pull it off as smoothly as they did. Well, thanks to a collective interview with other Xbox luminaries, Todd Howard revealed that one thing that massively helped them was rebooting the console while you were playing it in order to free RAM. As you can imagine, Morrowind is quite quite intensive on resources, so the original Xbox capped out fairly early when it came to random access memory. Therefore, the team would implement lengthy loading screens to secretly hide the fact that they were actually rebooting your console to free up space for the area ahead. It's a mad idea when you consider that rebooting a console this many times could have had a disastrous effect on the machine itself, but for the most part, Bethesda pulled it off without anybody knowing. Number 2, a homemade mocap performance. Colony Wars 3 Red Sun. I think we all know that pang of fear that strikes whenever we accidentally delete a file that 10 minutes later we realise that we desperately needed. I mean, case in point, my entire master's thesis that was plucked back from the ether at the last moment thanks to a much more computer literate student. Cheers for that, Andy. However, not so lucky was the poor Duncan Robson, who accidentally deleted a rather important cutscene file from Colony Wars 3 Red Sun, as detailed here on Twitter, and seeing as there was no other way to fish this out of the recycling bin and fearful for his job, well, decided to get creative. Very creative.
Get me the suit! Now! That's pretty much what he did. Oh, he probably said that to himself, though, like, get me the suit!
You see, Robson explained that he actually went and re-recorded the facial capture for the file that he deleted, meaning that he actually snuck himself into this game, albeit in order to save his position. It's not clear if Robson used the in-house tech to do this or managed to do this at home, but the results were good enough that no one bar he, and now the rest of the internet at large, knew of this desperate solution. And number 1, horse trousers that crashed the game. Ultima Online.
Horse trousers? Horse trousers. Now, does that mean pants that have horse designs, or a horse that is wearing pants? Because, yeah, what?
And now we end on a video game dev reveal that not only blew my mind whilst researching this list for its sheer comedic value, but also likely blew the minds of Raph Costa and the dev team on Ultima Online, because this is a story of a pair of trousers that crashed their game. Or, technically, it was your horse that you were wearing as trousers, which sounds even more strange. You see, Costa detailed this incident on his personal website, and how thanks to the way that Ultima Online operated, the player themselves was considered a container in which all of the items in the game were stored, with the actual backpack that you use just being a visual signifier and nothing else.
Okay.
What this meant is that every item that you picked up is stored within the player, and that also extended to the mounts that you ride within the game. And I use ride in air quotations here because you don't actually ride these creatures so much as they are stored inside your player container, which then generates a pair of trousers that are shaped like your ride, which you then wear. That's right.
Okay, so it's the pants that are literally shaped like a horse. Okay.
You're actually wearing your own mount as a pair of insane pantaloons. Except it doesn't end there, because it turned out that just because your mount had been placed inside the player container, that didn't mean that it was content to just sit there and pretend to be an item, because the team soon found their game crashing and couldn't figure out why, until it was discovered that the horses and other mounts within the player container were moving around, eating consumable items, and even going outside of the boundaries of these containers and breaking the game. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 ways video games blew your mind without you realizing. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you
Well, folks, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link will be in the description. And I'll see all of you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.